Hello everybody, Mobius1 here, bringing you episode 4 of my Star Wars Unlimited Twilight of the Republic card set review series. In this episode, we're going to be taking a look at 13 different cards, which is more than I usually do in one of these videos, but some of these, there really isn't a whole lot to say about, so this should still be about as long as the rest of the episodes in the series. If you're new to the channel, I do lots of Star Wars gaming content, among other things, with a focus on Star Wars Unlimited right now, but I am also running a Star Wars Outlaws playthrough on the channel, so if that sounds like something you might be into, feel free to check it out. But with that out of the way, let's take a look at today's cards. So the first card we're taking a look at today is Republic Commando, a 3-cost heroism unit with 2 attack and 5 HP, which has Coordinate Saboteur. As a reminder, Coordinate is one of Twilight of the Republic's new keywords, which basically grants the card additional text or abilities while you control 3 or more units, including the Republic Commando himself. So 3 cost for a 2/5 isn't great. We're pretty consistently seeing 3-cost 3/5s with cards like Boba Fett and DJ. And you might be thinking to yourself, but Mobius, Boba Fett and DJ, they're both legendaries. Doesn't it make sense that their stats should be a little bit higher? And to that I'd say, well, in the last set we just got Toro Calican, which is a 3-cost 3/5 uncommon and has a really powerful ability to allow him to ready himself back up. And to that you might be thinking, well, Toro Calican's villainy, Republic Commando is heroism, maybe that's relevant in some way. And I remind you that we just got Cassian Andor, who is also a 3-cost 3/5 who can be run in heroism decks. And if you were still arguing with me and said, well, Cassian Andor is aggression heroism, not just heroism, meaning Republic Commando has more flexibility than Cassian, you might be right, but I'd point out that we just got Tech, who is a 3-cost heroism, 2/5, same stat line, but grants all of your friendly resources smuggle, which is a huge deal better than Coordinate Saboteur. And if you were to be like, well, Tech is a unique and Republic Commando is not, I would just give up and walk away, because now you're just being ridiculous. Honestly, I'm just a little upset that they did my Republic Commando boys dirty. I don't feel like this card is particularly good. It could be something that you would want if you're running heroism in draft or a limited format, but really I don't see this card making the cut in premier format. I mean, the fact that Coordinate is a conditional ability kind of hurts it, and even if you have the conditions met, Saboteur is not really always relevant. If you really wanted to include a 3-cost unit with Saboteur in your deck, we already have options like Rogue Operative, which is a 3-cost 2/4. So you are losing 1 hit point, but you're gaining Saboteur consistently, and you're getting Raid 2, which means Rogue Operative will be attacking as if it's a 4/4 instead of a 2/4. Alternatively, if you're running red, we have Fighters for Freedom, which is a 3-cost 3/4 with permanent Saboteur, and you get to deal 1 damage to a base every time you play another red card. Both of these options just seem infinitely better than Republic Commando. But of course, that's all going to boil down to, spoiler alert, something you're going to hear me mention a lot this video, how relevant those Republic and clone tags end up being this set. The more cards we see that benefit from having Republic or clone units in play, the better this card will get. But in a vacuum, I just don't see it being played all that much. And speaking of cards I don't think are going to see much play, we now have the Infantry of the 212th, which is a 3-cost Vigilance unit, 2 power, 4 HP with Coordinate Sentinel. I don't really get it. We already have a 3-cost Vigilance only, 2 power, 4 HP Sentinel with Cloud City Wingguard. They even both have the Trooper trait, so yeah, again, the only thing that we have to look forward to with Infantry of the 212th is how relevant Republic and clone traits are. So again, not really much to say about this card until we see what other Republic and clone synergies are coming in the set. Next up we have Kraken, who is a 5-cost command villainy unit, 2 power, 5 HP. When played, create 2 battle droid tokens, and then on attack, give each friendly token unit +1/+1 for this phase. As a reminder, battle droid tokens are 1/1 villainy units with the Separatist droid and trooper traits, and Kraken himself is also a Separatist droid. So 2/5 for 5 is obviously terrible, but you are getting 2 1/1s alongside it, so in a way you can look at Kraken as a 5-cost 4/7, which is about average. And then if he does manage to stick around on the board, which with 5 HP is not that unlikely, he'll be able to attack and buff all of your token units by +1/+1, and that's any token unit, not just battle droids. So if you happen to have clone trooper tokens for some reason, or if there are more token units added to the game in the future, Kraken will buff those as well. We looked at a similar card to this in the last video with Shock T, who is the 4-cost 3/4, which gives each friendly token unit +1/+0 passively, and then on attack creates a clone trooper token unit. So the effects are kind of reversed, but I honestly would say that Kraken, having that extra HP, even though he costs 1 more, gives him that staying power to probably get his attack off at least once, where Shock T is, in my opinion, more likely to die before she even gets to strike. I feel like Kraken also comes with more utility than Shock T because he creates those 2 battle droid tokens when you play him, as opposed to Shock T, who only really generates value the moment you play her if you have tokens in play already. And the reason I say that is the keyword exploit. If you play Kraken and he's immediately removed by your opponent, he will still have put those 2 1/1 battle droids in play for you to use with other cards such as Hailfire Tank. Because exploit is a mechanic, any card that immediately generates other token units for you to just sacrifice and reduce the cost of the exploit card by, make them way better. For example, the next card we're looking at, which is Separatist Super Tank, a 9-cost command villainy unit with 8 power, 8 HP, and exploit 3, meaning you can sacrifice up to 3 friendly units to give this a total discount of 6. Now, just looking at it for what it is, a 9-cost 8/8 unit with really no abilities at all is pretty bad, but if you're able to sacrifice 3 1/1 battle droid tokens to get this out for only 3 resources instead of 9, a 3-cost 8/8 is pretty good. And with cards like Kraken or Battle Droid Escort here that just generate 1/1 tokens for you, I don't think that'll be too hard to do. Now, yes, single target removal like Power of the Dark Side is going to feel pretty bad if you sacrifice a board of 1/1s to create an 8/8 Separatist Super Tank and then your opponent uses 1 card to remove it. Yeah, I mean, that's probably going to happen. And at the end of the day, Separatist Super Tank, no matter how much you pay for it, is still just a big body with no actual effect. And because of that, I don't know if this is really going to make the final cut for competitive decks. If there are ways to give Separatist Super Tank other abilities like Sentinel or Overwhelm, then perhaps it'll get much better. But again, just looking at it as is now on its own, it's not really all that impressive. A much cheaper, yet in my opinion much more interesting card is Batch Brothers, which is a 3-cost aggression heroism unit with only 2 power and 1 measly HP, but when played, create a clone trooper token. Now, unlike battle droid tokens, clone trooper tokens are 2 2s with the Republic clone and trooper traits, so Batch Brothers, in a sense, is a 3-cost 4/3 divided over 2 bodies. So we finally get to see a similar card to Battle Droid Escort for the heroism side. So whereas Battle Droid Escort gives you 2 1/1s immediately, and then when the Battle Droid Escort itself, it generates a 3rd 1/1 for a total of 3/3, sort of, over 3 bodies. The Batch Brothers just being a 2/1 that creates a 2/2, I think is actually more relevant than Battle Droid Escort. I think that both cards, however, will be relevant in their respective archetypes because we know that the villainy decks are the ones that are going to be getting the exploit keyword, where you're going to want to be sacrificing your 1/1s to discount your other cards, and the heroism decks are the ones that are going to be getting coordinate, which require you to have 3 units in play. So if it's turn 4 and you have 5 resources and you deploy Ahsoka Tano, who has coordinate, this unit gains +2/+0. Even if you deploy her onto an empty board, all you need to do is play Batch Brothers, and all of a sudden Ahsoka Tano is a 5/6 instead of a 3/6. And even the stat line isn't that bad. If you compare to Ekko-based Defender, which is a 3-cost 4/3, you're getting the same number of stats. It's just with Batch Brothers split over 2 bodies, which in a deck where you want multiple units in play at the same time is probably better than having a 4/3 Sentinel. I think Batch Brothers is actually quite a strong card and will probably see quite a bit of play. They even make our next card quite a bit better, which is Low Altitude Gunship, a 6-cost aggression heroism unit with 6 power, 5 HP, Overwhelm, and when played, choose an enemy unit, deal 1 damage to it for each friendly Republic unit. And since Clone Trooper tokens are counted as Republic units, they will also increase the damage Low Altitude Gunship does when you play it. So even though they're a little different, the first card this reminds me of is Admiral Akbar, who also has when played, you may deal damage to a unit equal to the number of units you control in its arena. Now, Admiral Akbar doesn't care what traits the units you have in play are, but he does care about how many are in the target's arena, where Low Altitude Gunship doesn't care where they are so long as they're Republic. And even though Admiral Akbar has Restore 1, I think Low Altitude Gunship is giving you much more value with the total number of stats you're getting for the cost you're paying, and has Overwhelm. So if it's attacking low HP units like 1/1 Battle Droid tokens, you're going to be swinging into base as well. And even though all of that sounds quite positive for Low Altitude Gunship, if you compare it to Wrecker, things kinda might not look as good anymore. Wrecker, who's also a 6-cost aggression heroism unit, has a stronger body with 7/6 over 6/5, also has Overwhelm, and also has a when played that can do 5 damage to a single ground unit. Even if you're playing him onto an empty board, you just have to be comfortable sacrificing one of your resources to do so. These cards are obviously very comparable, and I think Wrecker in a vacuum is objectively the better card. If there's synergies, that could push Low Altitude Gunship over Wrecker in certain situations. I definitely don't think the LAT is going to be an S-tier card, but if you're building a Republic clone red-white aggression deck and you're looking for a bit of board control, I think this card might actually fit that deck. Next, we have R2-D2, Full of Solutions. That's right, it's another R2-D2 card. This one is a 2-cost Cunning Heroism unit, 2 power, 4 HP, and when played, you may discard a card from your hand. If you do, search the top 3 cards of your deck for a card and draw it. Now, the R2-D2 we got from set 1 is a 1-cost heroism only 1/4 with a really powerful when played on attack to look at the top card of your deck and either leave it there or put it on the bottom. And set 1 R2-D2 has actually fit into some competitive decks. Now, raising R2-D2's cost to 2 and then only giving 1 extra power out of the deal seems like it's not great value, but that when played ability is quite good. Being able to get rid of a dead card in your hand to look at the top 3 cards of your deck and choose any of them regardless of what they are and draw it, you don't even have to reveal it to your opponent so they don't know what you're getting, is really, really strong. This makes R2-D2 Full of Solutions not only a great play turn 1 at the start of the game, but also on like turn 7 or 8, so you can just dig deeper through your deck to find exactly the card you're looking for. Now, it's not a recurring effect like R2-D2 Inspiring Protocol. You're not going to be able to be digging on attack with R2-D2 Full of Solutions. It's only a when played. But I think if this effect was also on attack, it would be busted. In terms of stat lines, right now, yellow-white decks can run cards like L3, which are 2/2 bodies, which can come into play with a shield token. In the late game, a 2/2 shielded is probably better than a 2/4, but in the early game, the 2/4 and the 2/2 shielded are pretty comparable. I think R2-D2 Full of Solutions is a great card, and I expect to see him run in many, many yellow-white decks in the future. Continuing with the yellow-white theme, we have a new event card. Creative Thinking is a 2-cost Cunning Heroism event card. Exhaust a non-unique unit and create a Clone Trooper token. So first of all, you can play Creative Thinking even if your opponent has no units. It doesn't say exhaust a non-unique unit, and if you do create a Clone Trooper token, it just says both of those things separately. So you could play Creative Thinking with an empty board and you would still get a 2/2 Clone Trooper token. And because of that, you could look at Creative Thinking as if it were a 2/2 unit with a when played exhaust a non-unique unit. And we already have a similar card to that with Leia Organa, a 2-cost Cunning Heroism 2/2 when played, either ready a resource or exhaust a unit. Now again, there are slight differences here. The Leia unit can also ready you a resource, which makes her kind of like a 1-cost 2/2, Or if you choose to exhaust a unit, it could be a unique unit where creative thinking could not be. On the other hand, there are ways in which creative thinking could be better than Leia Organa. For instance, if you have Shock T in play, then the Clone Trooper token unit you create will be a 3-2 instead of a 2-2. Or even just referencing the low altitude gunship we just saw, if you were playing a red, white, and yellow deck and you're trying to get as many Republic units on the board as possible so that your low altitude gunship does more damage, creative thinking is a way to give you another one of those. I think if you are playing some sort of exhaust disruption style deck and you're trying to flood the board with Republic tokens, I think this could be a solid option. The next card we're looking at is Ekko, Valiant Arc Trooper. He's a 2-cost command heroism unit, 2 power, 2 HP, and coordinate. This unit gets +2/+2. So if you have 2 other units in play, whether they're ground units, space units, token units, leader units, it doesn't matter so long as you have them. Ekko Valiant Arc Trooper, instead of being a 2-cost 2/2, is a 2-cost 4/4. We know the typical power level of a 2-cost unit, particularly in command heroism, is 3/3 with Battlefield Marine. So when played onto an empty board, Ekko Valiant Arc Trooper is actually well below the power curve, but if you were playing him onto a board where you do have at least 2 other units, he's significantly above the curve. And initially, I got really excited because I thought of a world in where you would play Ekko Valiant Arc Trooper on turn 1, take the initiative, and then on turn 2, play Batch Brothers, making Ekko a 4/4. But if your opponent had also played anything into the ground arena, they could probably kill your 2/1 Batch Brother, which would reduce Ekko back to a 2/2. So even though that is a cool combo, it really doesn't work at all if your opponent played anything into the ground arena on turn 1. I do also want to bring up one other interesting interaction, and that is with Ekko Restored from set 2. Ekko Restored is a 4-cost command heroism 4/4. He has Restore 2, but most interestingly is his When Played ability. It says you may discard a card from your hand, give 2 experience tokens to a unit in play with the same name as the discarded card. And according to the rules, the same name only applies to the actual unit name, not the subtitle. This means if you're running both cards, you can play Ekko Restored, discard Ekko Valiant Arc Trooper, and your Ekko Restored will come in as a 6/6 instead of a 4/4. I think effects like this are going to become very, very interesting the further through the releases Star Wars Unlimited gets and the more versions of unique units come into print. Is this particular combo worth running right now? I really don't know, especially because Ekko Restored is missing the Republic trait. He's a fringe clone, not even a trooper anymore, which is a little weird. But yeah, that Republic synergy is going to be lost on Ekko Restored, whereas the Valiant Arc Trooper version still has it. So in my opinion, Ekko really isn't that great of a turn 1 play, but if you have 2 resources floating later in the game, I think a 2-cost 4/4 vanilla really isn't all that bad, especially, again, if you're running a deck that has Republic and clone synergies, and you're looking to just put units on the board. And speaking of Republic synergies, we now have Republic Tactical Officer, a 2-cost ground unit command heroism, 1 power, 4 HP. When played, you may attack with a Republic unit. It gets +2/+0 for this attack. Immediate comparison, Fleet Lieutenant, 3-cost 3/3. When played, you may attack with a unit. If it's a Rebel unit, it gets +2/+0 for this attack. Also, to Snow Trooper Lieutenant, who is also 2-cost, 2/2 body instead of 1/4. And when played, you may attack with a unit. If it's an Imperial unit, it gets +2/+0 for the attack. Now, these are very, very similar cards, but a huge distinction needs to be made between the 2 lieutenants and the Republic Tactical Officer. Both of the lieutenant cards help you with your action economy in Star Wars Unlimited, because when you play them, you can attack with any unit that's in play. The condition of that unit being a Rebel or Imperial, depending on which one you're playing, only applies to the +2 power buff, not the attack action itself. Republic Tactical Officer, on the other hand, requires the targeted unit to be Republic in order to attack at all. So if you have other units in play that aren't Republic, Republic Tactical Officer misses when you play him. And while my initial evaluation of the card was that a 1/4 stat line is probably worse than a 2/2 stat line, such as Snowtrooper Lieutenant, if you are up against a deck that's going to be generating 1/1 battle droid tokens, which many decks might be after this set launches, then Republic Tactical Officer can stick around and help clear those tokens from your opponent's board. Again, there isn't a whole lot to say about Republic Tactical Officer. I think if you're playing a Republic board floody kind of board and you're up against an opponent that's going to be spawning small, cheap units, then he's probably good. But, yeah, I don't know. I really don't like the 1/4 stat line, except in that very specific situation, so we'll see how prevalent those types of decks are once the set launches. Next up, we have Pelta Supply Frigate, a 5-cost command heroism space unit, 3 power, 6 HP, coordinate, when played, create a clone trooper token. So 5 cost for 3/6 in space and 2/2 in ground, both Republic. Yeah, I don't know. So if you get it to trigger, you're getting a total of 5/8 worth of stats for only 5 resources, but it's conditional. You need to have at least 2 other units in play when you play the Pelta Supply Frigate in order for its own win played effect to trigger. So this is really more of a win more card. And because of that, I imagine there have to be better win more cards to play for 5 resources than this. I mean, not that it's a win more card, it's kind of more of a comeback card because it has ambush, but I gotta think the Marauder from Shadows of the Galaxies with a 4/5 ambush and the win played to potentially turn a card in your discard pile into a resource is just better. And if your goal is to slow down your opponent in the space arena, then Bright Hope comes out for 1 resource less as a 2/6 and has Sentinel. So the only deck I really see Pelta Supply Frigate fitting into is one that's trying to, again, flood the board with as many Republic units as possible. If it wasn't a coordinate win played and just had win played create a clone trooper token, I think this card might actually be really strong, but because it's a conditional effect that requires you to already have units in play, I don't know how strong this is going to be. It is a common, so we'll probably see it quite a bit in draft or limited formats, but in Premier, I don't imagine we're going to be seeing this, but I could be wrong. Okay, next we have Cassian Defender is a 2-cost Vigilance Heroism ground unit, a 0/5 Wookiee with grit, and when played, heal up to 2 damage from another unit and deal that much damage to this unit. They do seem to be setting up some sort of unit healing blue-white deck. If you look at the Obi-Wan Kenobi leader that we looked at in the last video, you can see that once again, we have unit healing effects. And this actually is a really strong follow-up to Royal Guard Attaché. If you open with Royal Guard Attaché on turn 1, he becomes a 2/3 after damaging himself. And then on turn 2, you can play Cassian Defender, heal your Royal Guard Attaché back to a 2/5, and then Cassian Defender will be left as a standalone 2/3 because of grit. Honestly, that's not a bad opening combo, especially if you have another card that only costs 1 to use your 3rd resource on. If we get any sort of card that can be put into this blue-white unit healing deck that has some sort of ability that procs whenever another friendly unit is healed, then Cassian Defender and Obi-Wan and this whole archetype is going to probably be really strong, depending on what that effect is. Without that deck archetype, however, I don't think Cassian Defender is going to see any play at all, because it's too conditional. You don't have any units in play with damage on them, then Cassian Defender is just a 2-cost 0/5 that does nothing. It does have the Wookiee trait, which I guess helps other Wookiee synergy cards like Wookiee Warrior trigger that, you know, if you control another Wookiee unit, draw a card. But right now, Star Wars Unlimited's Wookiee synergies is not really strong enough to justify running an all Wookiee deck. Believe me, I've tried. So yeah, this one's kind of pending on whether or not we get a unit healing proc effect on a future card, but once that card is announced, hopefully, then we'll be returning to this one and reevaluating it for sure. All right, and the last card we're looking at in this video is Knight of the Republic, a 6-cost Vigilance Heroism ground unit, 4/7. When this unit is attacked, create a clone trooper token. So this one's interesting because a 4/7 for 6 is a little subpar when it comes to just pure stats. But if we can somehow get our opponent to attack into this unit, then he'll be spawning 2/2 clone trooper units for us every time. And by playing a card such as Protector and giving Knight of the Republic Sentinel, then that could be something we force our opponent to do. In addition to Sentinel, Protector also gives the unit +1/+1, so you could look at this as a 7-cost 5/8 with Sentinel, but that's only if you are running a double blue aspect deck. Otherwise, you'll be paying 3 for Protector, and then a 9-cost 5/8 with Sentinel doesn't sound all that glorious. But even then, a 9-cost 5/8 Sentinel that spawns you a 2/2 every time your opponent attacks into it might not be that bad. And if you think it's worth risking putting even more upgrades on this guy, you can throw an Electro Staff on him, not only giving him another +2/+2, but making it so that every time your opponent attacks him, the attacking unit gets -1 power, making him stick around even longer and generate more 2/2 Clone Trooper tokens. Take all of that we just said and put it into an Obi-Wan Kenobi deck so that Obi-Wan can use his leader ability to heal Knight of the Republic and make him last even longer, and I think you have a pretty unstoppable token generating wall of a Knight of the Republic. You do just always want to be aware of what removal options your opponent could be running so that you don't stack 3 upgrades on Knight of the Republic and get removed by 1 card like Fell the Dragon. Even a card like Waylay, like after getting Knight of the Republic established with Sentinel and an Electro Staff and maybe a Jedi Lightsaber and who knows what else, having that just bounced back to your hand, all the upgrades going into your discard pile and having to play this again as just a 6-cost 4/7. Oof, yeah, that's a frightening thing to think about. So because of that, I don't know how good Knight of the Republic is going to be. I think the potential is very, very high. But if single target removal or bounce effects are still prevalent in the meta, then this card gets significantly worse. Doesn't mean I'm not going to try to make it work, though. All right, so that's going to be it for this episode. We looked at a lot of cards in this one, but a lot of them kind of fall into the same category, which is there really isn't much to say until we can see what other synergies are going to be coming in the rest of the set. So far, there are some really cool looking cards, but overall, I feel kind of underwhelmed with the majority of the spoilers that we've seen so far for set 3. Now, really, I'm not surprised by that. It's still super early in spoiler season. We have a lot more to come in the future. And if you want to hear my thoughts on those future cards as well, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I'd appreciate it if you left a like and a comment if you found this entertaining or enjoyable in any way. Let me know in the comments which of these cards you think is the most exciting. Let me know if there are any interesting combinations or synergies that I didn't think of that you found. And yeah, that's it for now. So thank you all for watching. Mobius1 here, and I'll see you in the next one.